I don't have. Well, I have minions. I know more minions are gone. They're about
Tell
to
you,
go
man.
stream. They're not ready to stream. Setting up the live meeting. Someone said me too. Setting up the live meeting. Now we are live. And in three, and here we go. To you and hello. Welcome to James Lott Jr. is the farmer and Jack Farmer is the DJ. Hi, Jack Farmer.
Hey, James, how are you today? Happy MLK Day to you.
Yes, and you too. I'm dedicating the show, all my shows I do today, to Dr. Martin King Jr. because of him and others, you and I are able to sit here and have talks like this and actually be friends and have shows together. People like
Absolutely.
him and others did this, and it's a great thing. And it's a hello, Kiss Me. And it should not matter. Color and race should not matter when it comes to friendship and doing things like this.
Well, we talk a lot about music on this show. That's basically what this show is all about. And when you think about music, you can't do it without talking about different people of color and what they've contributed and basically built. I say contributed as if it wasn't basically built off of everything provided by people of color. I got to admit, man, bagpipes aren't exactly popping off on the radio. So white people don't have a whole lot to say they contributed. But one of these days, bagpipes are going to become popular, and then we'll be able to say that was our thing. But
bagpipe. Well, I found that I am part Scottish, apparently, so maybe that's my people. I guess I don't know what's going on. I didn't realize.
We'll get some river dancing going. It'll be cool.
Oh my God, okay, this is that's another show. But I used to like river dance for a while. Remember, it was big for a minute in America. It came really big.
Oh, it was huge. That guy, I heard something about his legs being insured for like a ridiculous, like $100 million or something like that. But now he could probably like go to a grocery store. No one would even know who he was. But he was like the most famous guy in the world for 6 months. What was his name? Michael Flatley? Was that it?
Flatley, yes.
Yeah.
The Lord of the Dance and all that. I mean, remember how it was huge. It was huge. And then it just went away.
Yeah, him and the Tybo guy are like sitting together, like, what happened to us, man?
Him too. I've got him too. Oh my God, no. Okay, it's on the show, folks. On the show. People who came and went.
Right.
Like that. Hello, Kenneth Clark. Hello, people who are watching for your midday pleasure. We're talking music and we're talking what is R&B. I thought in honor of all this, and actually, Jack. Hi, Chemo. Hi, everybody. Demo. I'm sorry, I said Chemo. Demo Katanabe.
Demo.
Yeah, you know Demo. No, so you said something that I didn't even say it. You already said it before me that a lot of the music we listen to now did originate from the African American community, didn't it?
Yeah, and I have a theory on that. I have never fact checked this. I've never like looked into it. I was just thinking about it, and I think it's interesting when you look at like old music from like Europe and Scotland and all those other places. So much of it is performative, where you when you think about it, it's someone playing music while people watch. I mean, even later when you think like Beethoven and stuff, it's them on a stage while everyone's sitting there watching. Where I think in Africa, a lot of the music, it was more drums heavy. Well, I should say Europe, it was like piano, strings, flutes and winds. But like in Africa, it seemed like more drum based and like people partaking in it and enjoying it and dancing with it. And I think that's why it's kind of, we've built so much off of it as opposed to the more performative, just watching someone play, if that makes sense. And to me, that's kind of what I was thinking. I've not verified that. I could be totally wrong. Something that's whirling around in my head, James.
No, I will tell you as a person who's been around African folks, there is, and around European folks, there is a difference in terms of participation music. A lot of it is in African culture. You join in. It's like it's part of the group, and also in indigenous people culture too. It's very much this kind of you're all in it together. It's you're either dancing with it or you're singing with it. No one's just sitting in the seats or sitting back in the corners going, oh, that's nice. We're actually part of it, and it's part of the culture. I think there's some truth to that. Actually, I will give it to you, Jack Farmer.
Yeah. I think it's I'll just say I'm right. I'm a very intelligent person. I'll just take it. I'll roll with it.
I'm gonna go with because I kind of, but it's funny because okay, so I actually looked up. I wanted to find out what like the definition of R&B is. So I want to read this off before we begin our talk. And thanks folks for joining in. Please click that like button. Rhythm and blues, often abbreviated as R&B, is a genre of popular music that originated in the African American communities in the 1940s. The term was originally used by record companies to describe recordings marketed predominantly to urban African Americans at a time when urbane, rocking, jazz-based music with a heavy, insistent beat was becoming more popular. Comes from blues and jazz. So that's the official, I guess, definition of it. And I know it's 1940. I know it's 1940s. I thought it was a little longer than that, 1940s.
Yeah.
And I thought, and as we talk about today, we're going to talk about this today. It started out with a select few, and now has morphed into, because hip hop came later, rock came later, country was around, but then it became rhythm and blues was part of country also, and that development, as we talk about all different types of kind of what we think R&B is and what it could be and what it was. And I'm going to start off with white artists. Actually, I want to start off with white artists. That's because you're white, but
right. Am I? No,
take a DNA test to find out.
Nah, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, you're pretty sure. Okay, I'm just checking. Everybody, does he look white to you? I don't know.
Yeah.
But no, there's just, okay. So we know black folks do R&B. We're going to talk about all those great people and that stuff. But I want to start off with some wonderful white artists. I'm going to name some names. I'm going to name them off, and we're going to kind of talk about them a little bit, what their impact is. Tina Marie, Hall & Oates, early Chicago, especially the horn section.
Yeah.
Stansfield, Elton John, George Michael, Culture Club, even up to Adele and Sam Smith. These are folks that the black community loves their music. I know for a fact they do. They get played on black radio. Now, I didn't include hip hop because that's no discussion too, Kai. Because there's R&B elements in there, but I just wanted to mention Eminem or Third Base or Beastie Boy. I didn't name though. That's a whole other discussion.
Yeah.
Well, I guess kind of right. It's another discussion, right?
Right. But you're right. They do get tied together so often. I feel like growing up anyways, it was always like the radio stations that would play R&B, it was always hip hop and R&B is what they'd say. Like they always sort of, if you have one, you have the other. But yeah, that's the thing about R&B is it's so encompassing. There's so many artists and so many things as a DJ. And you know this because you've DJ'd. That's why I always say with requests, sometimes people say DJs don't like requests. I think DJs don't mind requests. It's just always difficult to understand what people are talking about because sometimes people will say, oh, can I hear some R&B? And like you said, that could be the Rolling Stones. That could be Al Green. I don't know. That could be a million things. Al Green, by the way, Let's Stay Together is
I love
that's probably one of my
Take Me to the River, Let's Stay Together.
Yeah. And so it's crazy how all encompassing it is and how many different types of artists play that kind of music. And I think it's one of those ones. R&B, I think a lot of people will say they like, but I don't think a lot of people realize just how big and how valuable R&B is. So back to the request thing, if you say don't just say R&B, say I want to hear Adele or whatever. Say artist and song title. That's how you make a request to a DJ. But anyways, yes. I digress. No, I like all of it.
That was great. No, I love that. But that's a good point though. It's like when someone makes a blanket statement like I want to hear some good R&B, there's several levels to that. It could be, do you mean 70s R&B? Mm-hmm. You just mentioned Al Green. Do you also mean do you count disco in there somewhere or funk?
Right.
Do you throw on some Commodores? Do you throw on some, right. Are you talking 80s R&B like Anita Baker, the more Sheener, Luther Vandross? What are you talking about, right?
Right. And so it's never for DJs. I think that's where the disconnect happens a lot of times with people. And they'll say, yeah, I want to hear R&B and I'll play George Michael. And they'll be like, what? This isn't what I wanted. What are you doing? And it's like, well, just if you tell me the artist's name and song, then we're on the right track because I can build off of that. But R&B would be such a broad statement. And same thing goes for everything else like rock or country or rap or whatever. There's always such broad strokes in those things. And so, but man, I think, you could get lost in a day's worth of music just going through R&B.
Yes. And folks, we're going to have other discussions, other shows about certain things you just mentioned, grunge, country, we're going to talk about all that stuff. Because again, the lines start to blur at some point. I would say maybe 90s, 2000s today. It's all these things are merging together. And that's something we'll talk about in some other shows. But all right, so R&B is so funny to me because I grew up with the Motown sound, which is R&B, but it's also very poppy in many ways. Some say it's very pop because it was on purpose, very gorgeous on purpose. But I remember when I was going to the Tower Records. Have you guys had Tower Records in the Northwest? I know they're everywhere. Did you have records?
Yeah, we did. I knew about Tower. Yeah.
So Tower Records had a section. Yeah. Okay. So Tower Records had this, and even Virgin America, but there's Tower before Virgin came. Tower had a section called Black. So it was pop rock Black. And Black was considered there was the R&B section. So, quick story, when Madonna first came out, we thought she was Black. We did not know she was white. They had no picture on the 12 inches. We're talking Physical Attraction and everybody. We didn't know and it's named Madonna. We're thinking it has to be somebody brown. We didn't think nobody that. And I remember it wasn't until we saw her later on Solid Gold. I was like, she's white. I remember my friends calling each other. But at first, she was in the Black section.
Interesting.
Her 12 inches, her early 12 inches were in the Black section. So I had to go. I said, "Where's Madonna?" I remember Tyrus going over there in the Black section over there.
Interesting. One, it's interesting that they separated it that way. I feel like a store would get in trouble today for doing it that way.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But that's the same thing that happened to Elvis too. I believe no one thought he was white either because of the way he sang. But that's funny. I didn't know about that with Madonna. You mentioned Motown. As we were preparing for the show and talking about it, I would say the first group that I think of when I think of R&B is Boyz II Men. Maybe that ages me. You can probably figure out how old I am based off of that. But because they were the R&B group for me growing up. They were the peak R&B, but they were also Motown, as anyone who knows Motown Philly will.
Yes, it is. It was Boyz II Men, ABC, BBD.
Yeah, right. That's one of my favorite. That's one of my favorite songs to play. That and Poison is those two. I play those two
Poison. I mean, that song is classic. You can play it anywhere, and people will have to dance. That song is like just everybody has to dance. You have to dance.
But yeah, I think that for me, it was definitely Boyz II Men was the first group where I was like, this is what R&B is. Of course, that's just a small segment of it. But to me, that was always the first, that's always kind of my base of where I go, what's R&B? Boom, Boyz II Men. Okay. And then I kind of build off of that. But Motown's another one of those genres that, I don't know if genre's fair because it's really just where it's from as opposed to what it is, but it still has its own sound. I'm digressing. Motown is its own thing, but it's also R&B. Music's so confusing.
You're not digressing. You're doing fine. It's all part of this. No, my thing is, so going off of that, that was the early 90s. So I told folks I was a grown man in the early 90s, so I was a grown up. I was getting out of college or whatever. And so there was a whole, and I'll go off of that tangent. There was a whole bunch of groups that came out around that time. It was like a rebirth. There's New Jack Swing that was big at the time. And Boyz II Men was a throwback because it was them and En Vogue. En Vogue came out a year before. And En Vogue was a throwback also to those singers. It was the singer thing. It was like they're R&B, but pop folks like them. Your mother could like them. The kids they were cool for the kids, cool for the parents. And I feel like En Vogue and Boyz II Men they both were huge at the time. And of course, Boyz II Men had some of the biggest songs of that era. I mean, literally on the Billboard charts, the longest running singles until recently they were broken. And it was funny because they were considered R&B, yet some of their songs are poppy-esque. Yet they're not label mate. They did a song at one point. Who did this one? What's keeping over here? I think about them. I think about the 98 Degrees and all that came out kind of. And Mariah Carey came out. Now Mariah Carey, when she first came out, I heard she was white singer Mariah Carey. They did not know who she was. She was in the pop section for her first album, Vision of Love and everything. I'm like, white singer. I remember looking at it going, she looks mixed. She's actually triracial. She's mixed. She's black, white, and Venezuelan. But at the time, it's called her white singer at first. They didn't know what to do it there. Compared to a Whitney Houston, who was black, obviously. But she was very much kind of this R&B pop singer too. But it kept putting in the R&B category, like she's R&B. And then this, of course, she hit a big with the Bodyguard soundtrack, and that changed everything. But it's funny watching that, going by that time period you're saying, it was like they were all kind of they were all having hits. That's the whole thing. And then influencing all these, and there were so many male bands that came out. Guy, Jagged Edge,
Oh, Jagged Edge. Yeah.
There's one called, I think it was one called Total.
Yeah.
Then there was like, then R. Kelly came out at the time, and R. Kelly, they came out at the time. And there's a lot of like people just came out through that time. There's a whole, you know, the female was like, there was TLC and SWV, and they also, there's all these vocal groups started coming
SWV.
out. And they were all.
I always mix SWV
yes.
up with 702. Is it? I don't know. There's a
I
few.
remember 702. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
702.
I always mix up. There's like 3 girl groups that I mix up. Like which one does which one? There's like Where My Girls At, and
oh yes, Where My Girls At. Yes, yes, yes. It was 702, SWV, a group called Total. It was 3 girls again. It was three girls. TLC was 3 girls, but they had the whole rap thing that set them apart a little bit.
Oh, TLC they definitely stood above the others.
So are they R&B? Or are they? I mean, because they did rap, R&B, pop. I mean, you mentioned another show, Red Light Special, about that song the other day. I mean, what are they?
I don't know. I think you could put them in R&B. I don't think, as a DJ, I don't think you'd get in trouble for playing them if you were playing an R&B set. I kind of put them in pop because they encompass I feel like once you start encompassing everything, you move into the pop category. Kind of pop feels like a catch-all to me. For them. I have a question about Boyz II Men, and you had mentioned 98 Degrees and the other people. How come when we talk about Backstreet Boys, NSYNC, and all these other groups, we call them boy bands, but I feel like you would never call Boyz II Men a boy band. What is that? Even though they have boy in their name, you would never call them a boy band, even though the makeup of how they're set up is essentially the same thing.
Well, I guess, part of it, this is so funny because New Edition, same thing. This came first. They're essentially a boy band that was put together, right? Okay, boy band, that's a whole other show too. Boy bands, literally consider it was like, you always heard the birth of the boy band a lot of times. They said the Beatles were a boy band.
Right.
Essentially. And you know, I guess they were. I mean, I've heard that. I don't know how much I agree with that, but I guess they are. When they first started.
I don't know. I feel like if someone makes the argument, I get it. I don't know if I'd put them in the boy band. If someone requested a boy band and I played Beatles, I think they'd give me a weird look. But I mean, boy bands do go back a ways because the Right Stuff, New Kids on the Block, they were a boy band.
Well, they were first. Okay, that's why. Okay, so that's my point. So New Edition started. They had some success, but they were black, so they didn't get as much success. Then the same guy, Jamie Starr, went and got New Edition started. New Kids on the Block. They were huge, clearly.
Right.
And that kind of whole boy band thing was there. Then it kind of skipped, like you said, like a whole decade it skipped. And all those groups were just called groups. But then it came to the NSYNC, Backstreet Boys, 98 Degrees, LFO, all those groups, they all became boy band. So it's kind of funny, you're right, kind of skipped a whole decade and went, no, now you guys are boy bands because you were put together and you sing schlocky songs. I mean, I don't know what the critics think. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah. I wonder if it's because of how quickly they sort of pump out music. Because Backstreet Boys, for instance, which seemed to be the biggest of the groups at that time, really they were pumping out songs every month was a new song coming out. Where I think with Boyz II Men, they have hits, but it also was over time. It wasn't like they just pumped them out over 12 songs over the course of a year and then we're done.
Right. So I don't know. That's a good question, folks. If you guys ain't gonna, but you're right. It's kind of been told that those aren't. Boyz II Men is a group.
Right.
It's an R&B group. It's a singing group. In Vogue isn't a girl group.
No.
I mean, Spice Girls are apparently, but not. It's like, how did that? TLC isn't a girl group. They don't say that. But girl groups like Danny Kane, that's a girl group. Or fifth, almost said Fifth Dimension. Fifth Harmony.
Fifth Harmony, yeah.
I mean, it's kind of like, well, why not the others? Why isn't SWV considered a girl group? I mean, Salt and Pepper, which is really funny because I was going to mention them because that same time period, they kind of crossed over into R&B with What a Man, which a lot of people like. And I'm sure you know that song and Shoot and all those.
What a Man. Shoot is a karaoke go-to.
Exactly right. See, exactly. but that's R&B, right? It's not really it's rap. I know it's rap, but it's R&B, right?
Where's the love for Spinderella? By the way, she was there doing the work, and
that's right.
How did she get they're like, what should we call ourselves? well, I'm Salt and you're Peppa. Why don't we call ourselves Salt and Peppa? And she's like, well, what about me? Nah.
Well, she is respected in certain circles, yes, but I get you saying the DJ would say that, of course. But I mean, but they're R&B esque, yes, basically, right? I mean,
yeah. I like. They're another group. Yeah, they had a like. I think they probably had 3 big hits.
Well, Push It.
I don't know. Yeah, there's Push It, Shoop, and What a Man is probably their 3 big ones. Am I missing?
Remember, you are missing one. Let's talk about Sex was huge.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
Sex, Baby,
that's right.
And they had a couple of minor ones, but like those are the 3 big ones for sure. And Push It, you can play like Poison. You put it on, everybody dances to it, of course, right?
Right.
But those are R&B. To me, those are R&B.
I'm getting into the weeds of being a DJ here, but Push It's one of those songs that, like, if you don't mix out of it, it starts to drag and get a little weird if you play the whole song.
Yeah. I agree. It's one of those fun songs to throw on, get everybody's hyped up, and then move on to something else. Mix it out into something else. I agree with you on that.
Right.
Okay, now before we go ahead, somebody in the chat room wants to comment, and that is Demo. Yes, R&B is very different. I feel like to be an R&B artist, you have to have a certain look to be successful. Example, Usher. But in hip hop, you could be any size and achieve success. Rick Ross. I don't know if I agree with that. Big folks in R&B were Luther Vandross, Freddie Jackson. They were all big, and they were big in R&B. So I don't know, Cheryl Lynn. I mean, there's some big folks, Martha Wash. There's some big folks in R&B that were big. So I don't know if that's true. But I think it's more about the sound. I think that to be successful in R&B, you have to have a certain sound that almost sounds like, and even with the white folks, blue-eyed soul, they call it. You know, those Hall & Oates makes it. Their songs are the bomb. I mean, their songs are really good. They're not doing anything to be extra black or nothing. They're just putting out songs that have his voice. His voice is soulful. There's a
right. Do you think maybe it's that, like, it's just more on a personal sort of real level, as opposed to, because you can write a song that's a good song, but it's just made up words that rhyme and sound nice, versus songs that feel like they are about something. So like Usher, for instance, Confessions sounds like it's about a real situation he's going through. It doesn't sound like he just made up a silly situation, you know? Do you think that might have to do with it, where it's more the way they perform it, in the sense that this feel like, I've always felt Alicia Keys is someone that I don't know if it's true, but I feel like all her songs sound like they're about a real situation in her life. Adele's the same way. It sounds like every song she's singing isn't just her going, I'm just going to write a breakup song. Like, there is a person attached to that song. Do you think that's the difference? Maybe that's why, like, a Backstreet Boys, where all their songs are just kind of like, I love this person, and it feels like as
larger than life.
Yeah, and it's like, well, what are you singing about? Nothing. Okay, whatever. It sounds fun. I like Backstreet Boys. I'm not giving them a hard time.
So do I. I mean, so do I. I can sing it. I like them. So that's what I mean.
You know, and maybe I wonder if that's the difference. Is just the way they sing it, and that you mentioned soul, in that soulful way of, this is a real thing. It's not just a song I'm singing. It's a real part of my life that's being put out through the microphone. Do you think that could be the difference?
Really good point, actually. Oh, I mean, oh my God! I think you just brought up a really good point, because I think of Dusty Springfield. Of course, she had lots of hits, but her most famous album is Dusty in Memphis. It's a soul album she made in the country. I mean, like, it's kind of, I mean, first of all, she's British, who came to America, recorded a soul album in a place that's known for, like, country and stuff. To me, that's, and you know, also Elvis is down there. And I've been to Graceland. I did cry a little bit when I got there. It was like, cool. My name's written on the wall. I wrote my name on the wall. But there's something about that. There is a soulful. We use all the puns in the world. Sorry, Flobo. Puns in the world.
Speaking of Flobo, I'm rocking a DJ Flobo
I see that
shirt.
Hello, DJ.
Yeah, got to represent other DJs while I'm talking music here.
Yes. That's flobito.threadless.com, right? Yes.
Yep. You can pick up yours today. Number 1 contender, Flobito.
Yeah, I love it. But I think you make a point that it's almost like country music too. They say country music, it's the storytelling that makes it country, so to speak. But see, and this is another show also. There's wrong with pop music to me.
Not at
Kylie
all.
Minogue said years ago, "Pop is not a dirty word," and that's the thing. It just means popular. It just means popular. And
Right.
a lot of songs that are R&B were popular songs in the lexicon of, of our. We just mentioned "Let's Stay Together" with Al Green. That is a huge song. Period. People know that song. Tina Turner did it years later, but he's known as the originator of that. It's like Marvin Gaye's "What's Going On," and that whole album. It was a popular album. Yes, it's from Motown and it's R&B, but it was a popular album, and pop is just popular. So I hate that. I hate this connotation. It's just that pop is bad. Pop is this.
Right.
But I get what you're saying. And in any genre, there's music that can be silly and not serious. But I think when it comes to soul music and R&B music, it has to be soulful. And Boys to Men, it's hard to say goodbye to yesterday. That song makes me cry every time. So it's such a song. But then I hear Johnny Cash's "Hurt," his version, and I cry every time when I hear that song. That's soulful.
It actually blew my mind when I found out that he covered the song and it wasn't. I thought that was his song for the longest time. I thought it was his song and Nine Inch Nails covered it. I didn't realize it was the other way. But by the way, what a bummer. What a bummer, by the way, if you make a song, if you're Nine Inch Nails, you make this song and it's great, and then someone else covers it and just crushes it, and you're just like, oh man.
No, Trent said it's fine. Trent said it's his song. Trent said now it's his song. He had it. Same with Prince, that Nothing Compares to You. He wrote and did that with his group. The Family was not a hit. Sinead O'Connor, #1 around the world. I mean, and her version's soulful too. It's a soulful version of that song.
Right.
Whew. I mean, she killed it.
Yeah,
that's her song.
As far as the pop music, when I think of pop music and pop, I always think of it. It's very similar to cooking and using sugar. Like you can use some pop, you can use a little sugar, and it's fine. It makes things great. But if all you're doing is trying to use sugar, if you just throw a pile of sugar onto a baking plate tray and go, "This is what I'm making," it's like, okay, man, you're just using sugar. But if you use it to sweeten something up a little bit, it's fine. And I think that's the same thing with pop. Like, look, I like cookies. They're fine. They shouldn't be all you eat, but cookies are great. Donuts are great. Shouldn't be everything, but it's good to have a little bit now and then. It's fine. It's good. It's tasty. Why not? And that's how I feel like about the Backstreet Boys. Backstreet Boys are the donuts of music. They're great. They're good, but that shouldn't be all you eat. That's my comparison.
Jack Farmer, I've never in all the years of my natural life heard the Backstreet Boys compared to donuts. The donuts of
yeah, I mean, they're tasty. They're good.
Take that. I'll take it. They are. I like them. I like them. The closest I've met a Backstreet Boys, I met Aaron Carter. I didn't meet all the rest. I met Aaron Carter once.
Was he a nice guy?
And AfterBuzz, actually. He was very good. He was very, I know he had some problems and stuff, but he was very nice to me. I mean, we had a great time. We took pictures together. We laughed and talked. I remember Aaron's party. Where that song? My kids like that. He was very popular. He was a very popular child singer. He was very popular, folks. But yeah, I think I like that Backstreet Boys is kind of like our little our nucleus. But yeah, you start going backwards to like Gap Band. Like you got Gap Band, Commodores. There's a bunch of groups, Earth, Wind and Fire. I mean, there are a lot of them that were popular music, but they were R&B. And I always wonder. I mentioned Chicago because I mentioned the horn section. The horn sections became very popular in the 70s. Saxophones can be popular in the 80s. I mean, a good sax solo in there somewhere. But then you have people like Tina Turner, who came from when I could tell they were soul, and they were Proud Mary, all that.
Proud Mary, keep on burning.
I do like the CCR version too. I'm a big CCR fan, so I grew up with them. So I'm a big fan of and his voice and their voice. John Fogerty's voice is very soulful. Also, he's like a Joe Cocker and all them. Joe Cocker has a soulful voice. Bill Medley has a soulful voice. I mean, these white folks, they got some soulful voices.
The CCR version's good, but Tina's so fun. Like such a fun. It's got so much energy to it. It's just come on, Tina. How do you compete with Tina Turner? There's no hard feelings in getting outdone by Tina Turner.
but she's considered the queen of rock and roll.
Yeah.
Not R&B though, but of rock and roll. This goes back to our whole thing. What is R&B? Because when she came back, she did a lot of rock and R&B stuff.
Well, yeah, Mick Jagger like loves her, and if he loves someone, then there, because I think of the Rolling Stones as just the pinnacle of rock and roll. So of course they do R&B and country and everything too. That's that one of those.
Yes, yes.
In
They did
fact,
disco too.
in fact, funny
No.
enough, my dad is a huge Rolling Stones fan, and because of this, he got me into Rolling Stones. His birthday's coming up. I got him a shirt, and it's sitting on my desk right here.
Oh, it's showing. That's funny. Oh my God, Dad, don't watch this.
He doesn't watch this, but it says Keith Richards for president. So
I love it.
I got him that shirt. I'm gonna send it over to him tomorrow. When
I love it.
But yeah, he doesn't watch my shows, but he supports. He's happy. He supports me, but he's also.
I know how it is. We're not all like Flo. Our mothers watch our shows, and nobody watches my shows either. They don't mind. I don't care.
My mom keeps up with my shows. My dad's very like working with his hands kind of guy. He's like too busy working on cars and like cutting down trees and stuff like that. My dad's like Ron Swanson from Parks and Recreation. So
now I got it. Now I got it. Now I got a picture of your father right now.
Yeah.
Or Ron Swanson, one of the two.
Yeah. Close enough.
But you have Rolling Stones. I mean, it's another. Then you get these groups that do genre busting stuff. Like a Blondie, which I mentioned the other day to you, like Blondie, like Rolling Stones. They do, or like ZZ Top. They're somebody who has their guitars are rhythmic. There's rhythmic stuff in that. They're from Texas. So a lot of the soulfulness from down, from Texas and from the South, that's infused in a lot of their music. And I think it's just so interesting that this R&B thing really does. Yes, we acknowledge it started out with Black folks basically. But it really has gone out to other, because I mean, also, it all led to like, even rock rap, and that's always other things that came out in the 90s, these groups that were doing these things like Linkin Park, and also they were kind of doing this mixture of stuff. But it all comes from R&B. R&B was the first, I mean, it's like, we got to give reverence to those artists like Rick James. There was this story, I remember years when Rick James died, it was revealed that Rick James and Neil Young were in a band together in the 60s before they got popular. Called the Murder Birds. And
what a cool name.
Right, I know.
The Murder Birds?
Yep, they didn't make it. But
it sounds like a Cobra Kai dojo, like from the show Cobra Kai, like the Murder Birds.
So, but they did
one of the rival dojos.
Right. It didn't make it. And of course, two great artists came out of it with very divergent music, right? But it was saying, well, why? They asked Neil Young, like, you guys, he goes, but he played guitar, and I played guitar. We both sang. We both were songwriters. It wasn't about black or white. They both were just artists, and it did work in this band. And I think that's kind of this funny thing where, and Neil Young, I'm a huge Neil Young fan. Some of his songs, he's not considered R&B at all, but some of his songs are soulful. Mm-hmm. But you got Rick James, who did rock songs too. He did rock and funk, and it's just kind of funny like that. There are people who can play different types of music, and it's like it's part of it's R&B. Some of it is R&B.
Well, maybe that's it. Maybe it's when the singing is soulful, but the beat is rhythmic and danceable, kind of a grooving beat with a soulful song over it. Maybe that's just what it is. Because I'm thinking of like, I don't know. I like the song that just kind of popped in my head is "Return of the Mac."
Oh yeah.
And like he's kind of singing about coming back, and but like it's got like a cool like beat to it, and you can kind of groove to it. And a lot of these songs, like the like "Let's Stay Together," Al Green, like it's a soulful song, but the beat isn't just a beat. Like it is kind of like a groovy kind of like song. It's right. Not just a beat you would listen to like a country song has a beat, but a lot of country songs you don't necessarily dance to, or you're not going to groove to. But you would groove to "Let's Stay Together." I mean, you wouldn't like rage to "Let's Stay Together," but you know what I mean? Like it's right. It's got kind of like a.
Right.
No, you just kind of let's kind of.
What it says insistent beat. It says heavy insistent beat. That's the original thing. So maybe you're right. Maybe that's it is. And I look at like Madonna again, back to Homegirl. Later, she did an album with Babyface. And it had some of her big "Take a Bow," it was my big secret. It was it's called Bedtime Story. It's an R&B album. She said it was her R&B album. And it was very R&B.
You said Homegirl, and I thought I was thinking you meant the song Material Girl, and I was like trying to play the song in my head as Home Girl, and I was like, wait, what is that for a second? Like, girl, because I am a home girl. And I was like, that doesn't sound right.
You remember that song? You know that song? Oh yeah, it's one for other hits. You don't remember other hits, She had a lot of hits. The home girl. But that's well. Actually, it's funny. Those early hits were written and produced by Black folks, also actually, and brown folks. Her early hits, like Nile Rodgers did "Like a Virgin," and I didn't know until years later that he was a producer of "Like a Virgin." I'm like, not Like a Virgin. Yeah, Like a Virgin. That's what Like a Virgin.
Yeah.
And that song, he was like, it's basically the Chic beat slowed down.
Oh, interesting.
It's like do. It's like it's because their beat was so fast because they were disco. They were disco R&B. This one is, he said he slowed it down, and you hear it, you go, oh, but because her voice was so Cupid dollish, and it was very white and pop.
It's always a weird point in a music fan's life when you realize most of the songs you hear aren't written by the people who sing them.
Oh, yes.
It's such a weird, like, oh, really? That's not them. It's not their experience or their life. It's just, especially, I mean, man, you look back at like the old, like the Frank Sinatra guys, you know, he didn't write a single song his entire life. He just got the words and showed up and did like one take and went home.
Let me ask you a question. I have this debate with my daughter all the time. So are they any less of an artist than someone who's a songwriter and writes their own songs?
I don't think so. I'm pretty, I guess, liberal with the idea of what an artist is. I think just because you don't do maybe as many things doesn't mean you're less of an artist. Like if you're a painter that's the best painter in the world and you're compared to an amazing painter and an amazing sculptor, it's like, yeah, they can do two things, but that doesn't mean you're less of an artist because one person does more, if that makes sense. Yeah. I mean, being a singer is a talent. Being a singer is hard. Even if you have a great voice, I can't sing to save my life, but I mean, having a great voice is only part of it. Especially living here in LA, you can knock a trash can over and 5 great singers are going to come pouring out of it. 5 super talented people are going to be, they're everywhere. So like to be able to make it as a singer, you've got to be good, even if someone else is writing your material. Now, if you do write your own material, I think that's incredible. That's amazing. That's even better, but an artist because you're not doing more of something, if that makes sense.
It does. If people don't know this already, I'm a songwriter, singer, spoken word artist. So I write my stuff, but I have also done people's work too. So to me, songwriting is a whole thing on its own anyway. It's a whole writer is a whole other thing anyway. But I tied to that whole thing of well, Avril Lavigne writes her own songs, blah blah. Well, I mean that's great, but it doesn't make. And I know Pink does too, but Mariah Carey does also. I mean, there's a lot that do, but there's also Barbra Streisand doesn't. She writes some. But most of them, she does. I mean, is she not one of the greatest voices of the generation? Obviously, she is. I mean, you can't take it away from her.
Right. And yeah, I mean, it's so, yeah, again, if you can write your own music, I think that's great. But that's just like saying, like, are you a real musician if you don't play every instrument? Because some people can. Well, right. Yeah, you're still an artist. If you just play guitar, that's still being an artist. But Dave Grohl can sing, write, and play drums and guitar. It's like, well, yeah, he's incredible. Good for him. It doesn't make guitar player only is less of an artist.
Yes, completely.
But I think everything's art. I'm one of those people that like, if you do it right and you do it in a certain way, I mean, I think building cabinets can be an art if you do it right. I think growing plants can be an art if you do it right. I think sewing a shirt can be an art if you do it right. I think anything can be an art if done in the right way.
I agree. I actually agree with that. I agree with that. Oh, thank you guys up there. It's fine. I know you like my music. Thank you. I have some music fans up there that like my music. And some new stuff coming out. But I going back to the R&B thing too. I feel like there's these different genres of R&B. So there's also they call the baby making R&B, which would be the Boyz II Men, which would be the R. Kelly, Barry White, the Vandross, Freddie Jackson. I'm trying to think.
I'll make love to you. Yeah. Man, come on. That song. That song, you know how many babies were born the year that song came
Well, I
out?
know, right? I know. Yes, I know. Trust me, I know. Um, I do know. But yeah, so it's like that's a form of R&B, and I think it goes back to what you were saying earlier. There's this soulful element of like swagger, kind of. They didn't call it that back then, but it's just like there's this kind of like they're owning their sexuality, kind of, but not in a way that was vulgar. It's just more like romantic almost. Like,
Right.
and a lot of women love that, and it's like they love to hear that kind of music. You put it on, and they're like, okay. And I know what, like, 'cause I have a deep voice, so I know how this is. Folks like Barry White or Luther Vandross, when they started to do the, I can get enough of your love, babe, and all that stuff, they're like, the panties drop, so to speak. I mean, it's like that's
Yep.
kind of the thing. I mean, that's a very important. That's a very interesting genre of like, especially R. Kelly. I mean, I know he's in a lot of trouble right now, but his music was big at that time period for that genre of R&B.
Yeah, R. Kelly is as a DJ, it's so disappointing. Like for the many, many reasons, it's disappointing. From a DJ standpoint, just playing music, it's so disappointing. Like, why can't I? I wish I could still play that music without all that baggage on top of it. Um, but the
I know.
world is what it is. But
Yeah.
that's far from the worst part about it. But the point is, I wish I could still play it. I just want to play Ignition. Let me play Ignition remix, everybody.
It filled the dance floor. The dance
Yeah.
floor was filled. When you played that song, it was.
Oh,
Um,
that used to be my encore song at the end of nights when people are like, one more song. And I'd be like, I don't usually do this, but why don't I break you guys off with a preview of the remix? And then I'd drop it right into his song, and it'd be so.
it would work. I know. I know it worked.
Yeah, and it would go, it was so good. But anyways, but yeah, that's actually, like I said, R&B, like that was when I first started understanding what R&B was. I thought it was. I thought it was romantic music. I thought that's what it all was, before realizing that it was so much more than that. But yeah, a lot of Usher as well, as mentioned before, and Luther Vandross and all that, like let's get it on, like
Get it on. Let's get it on. Getting grass. I'll turn off the lights and light a candle.
Petty Pendy,
Back when I was
yeah.
growing up, it was him, Jeffrey Osborne. There's all these folks that, and even the ones like the Bards, because there's also this other subgenre of people like in the high voices, like the Stylistics, or these other groups that have well, even like Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons. They like that high voice. Oh, what a night! I think they love that.
Mm-hmm.
That somehow women like that too. And I remember the Barge came out, and it was like Time Reveal or one of the songs, and the women were just like, "Oh my god!" His voice. I'm like, but it sounds like a girl's voice to me, kind of. It sounds so high, but for some reason that I'm learning more about sound anyway in life. That people it hits your ears a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
I get all the time. I get all the time. I literally get it all the time when I'm talking in the store, and they're like, James, I tell you, I just love your voice. I just heard your voice. I'm like, how'd you hear me? I was way over there, but I know sound travels. It bounces off walls. It happened to me once at a Starbucks. This guy was sitting like way over there somewhere, and the way he was talking, it bounced into my ear. Like, ooh, I'm kind of feeling something. And when he walked by, I go, I can tell you something that I'm told all the time. I love your voice. He was like, thank you. And he like walked up and was like, I know what that feels like now to hear sounds. I'm sure songs are the same way. It hits your ear a certain way. It makes your brain go, that's the song. I mean, you play that song one more time, and that's it. I mean, I love it.
Right. Yeah, you do have a great voice. You have a good radio voice, a good speaking voice. So that's probably why you have so many shows. So that
Yes.
works in your favor. But
yes, it kind of helps a little bit.
Yeah. It's always a bummer when you're, as someone who speaks as well, when you hear someone with like an amazing voice and you're like, I wish I had that voice. I have a buddy named James Shippey who has like the smoothest, like it's like a deep, smooth, buttery voice, and I'm so jealous every time he talks. We always call him Silent Thunder when he talks.
I like that. I like the silent. They call me the Quiet Storm.
The Quiet Storm.
Tony goes James, the Quiet Storm. I'm like, I'm here. Yes, Boyzmen had songs that everyone loves. Yes, they did. And again, they were born out of Boyz II Men. I mean, born out of New Edition, because the one singer became a manager, saw them doing doo-wop, which is another form of R&B. Doo-wop was very big, and there were a lot of groups in the 50s that were doing the barbershop quartets, and not just black, white, whatever, but it was considered R&B soulful music. It's another which I love that. You don't hear that much anymore. I know a few groups take 6. They also have Jersey Boys, of course, who does kind of stuff like that too. The tours, well, they used to tour the country, of course, not anymore, for the pandemic. But you don't hear that very much anymore either. And I used to love that kind of music. That's kind of fun.
Yeah, something that I think is just sort of happening with music in general is it's becoming so much more singular. Like you're not seeing bands as much anymore. You're not seeing groups as much anymore. It's kind of the star. It feels like everyone's sort of putting everything behind one person who's the star, and then you get individuals now as opposed to the groups. But yeah, a lot of those older groups, like I always say, the Four Tops is a group that is like one of the most underappreciated artists groups of all time. They have so many songs everyone knows, but no one like knows the artist. Like Build Me Up Buttercup, I think so many people know, but no one ever thinks themselves, oh yeah, it's the Four Tops. But they have a bunch of songs like that where you're like, oh yeah, I know that song.
Well, because the Temptations got bigger. I think it's something about the Temptations, somehow they stood out and they eclipsed the Four Tops. The Four Tops, you said, have a lot of hits. And they're played in movies, and they're redone in TV shows. But you're right, I completely agree with you. They are very underrated.
Right. Because I think if you ask most people, do you know who the Four Tops are? They'd all say no. But they all, like, if you started playing their songs, you'd say, do you know the song? They'd all go, oh, yeah, I know this song. It's kind of like the band Train. The radio.
I was not a Train. Sorry, I was not on the train for them. Sorry.
I'm not a huge Train fan either. I just they're another one of those groups that like a lot of people don't know much about them, but like they're a pop band, I think, where like they just like they put together songs that will get radio plays, and they do get radio plays. But
like that other group that gets played on Grey's Anatomy all the time. Oh my God, they had a bunch of hits too. And actually, the lead singer his name is Ryan Tedder. He does a lot of songwriting. Oh my God, I forgot the name of that group. They had that song with that about the
Ryan Tedder.
Yeah, Ryan Tedder. He's actually, I'm like, no, he's gonna kill me.
One Republic.
One Republic.
Yeah,
there are a lot of pop hits because I think they felt very like they were written on purpose.
Yeah, I have nothing against it. By the way, you got to do what you got to do. Trust me. If someone said, "Hey, Jack, can you put together some poppy songs for us? We'll pay you millions of dollars," I'd be like, "You're getting some pop music today."
Pop, 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 pop. Pop. My songs. Yeah. Yes. Well, you and I are sellouts, so it doesn't matter.
I will sell out in a second.
Oh, me too. I'm like, sure. What do you need from me? I'll deliver it. That's fine. That's probably up to you. Give me a couple days. Yeah. I'm very easy. I know I am. But I actually want to ask you about some of the major stars that seem to have walked the line, like a Michael Jackson or Prince. So Prince especially did everything. I mean, his songs were he did rock. I mean, Purple Rain, the soundtrack alone, he did like it was a different genre for every it was like different genres. Or even 1999 or Little Red Corvette or all the those songs were kind of like. So I remember, I was there for early MTV where they wouldn't play black artists. They just wouldn't. And I remember when Michael Jackson and Prince were the first. They were the first ones played that were black.
Right.
And their songs to me were very pop. It was like, well, why wouldn't they play them? Little Red Corvette, and I sang they're pop songs. Michael Jackson at the time, it was Beat It, Billie Jean. Those were pop songs. Beat It's a rock song if you think about it. If anything else, Eddie Van Halen, may he rest in peace. Right. I'm just like, so I'm just wondering with them, it's like, I mean, yes, they're black. That they always people R&B is black, but their songs did range, right? I mean, they did range all over the place. They were to be loved by everyone. Yeah,
I think people like Michael Jackson are actually, I mean, he's called the king of pop, but I think he's bigger than genres. I think Michael Jackson is a genre unto himself at this point, where sure you can put his music into other stuff, but the number of songs he has, just how big he was, how popular he was, how much he did, he's his own thing, man. He could have done whatever he wanted. I'm surprised they don't have a musical for Michael Jackson at some, or kind of like a Mamma Mia type thing where it's basically just taking his songs and turning it into a musical, because he's got so many songs and they're all so good. He's so good, man. It's just insane how talented he was. And Prince, he's someone who it feels like the longer, unfortunately he's passed away, but he's someone who's like, his legend grows, it seems like, where the longer he's gone and the more you find out about who he was and what he did, and not just how great his music was, but how smart he was, how he gave back to his hometown and all this other stuff. His legend just continues to grow as well. So I think he's kind of in a class of his own also. And I mean, if you're going to wear buttless pants, I mean, that puts you in your own category.
Cream, get on top, cream. I love that song. You're the bomb. I mean, he was somebody, you know, I mean, if you guys, people who know me close, who watch it know me, know how much I love Prince very much. And Prince was one of those people who taught people, him and George Michael both found out the hard way, but realized own your own masters, own your own music, control your destiny. They both really, George Michael got the really short end of the deal. I think he would have got a short end of the deal with all that, but he eventually was able to come out of it and do stuff, and Prince too. But Prince was very prolific, where Michael was very methodical.
Mm-hmm.
So Michael only had like 4 or 5 albums, you know, over a 20-year period, where Prince had 20 of them.
Right.
And I thought, and with Prince, so for me, a guy who, he also played with gender. He was wearing lace stuff. And I remember this one video, I laugh every time I see it in the beginning. It's for a song called Automatic from 1982 or whatever. It opens with a silhouette. And Prince was like 4 foot nothing. He's wearing 5-inch heels, some lace teddy, a hat, hair in his early 80s hair. Somehow he's going to take your woman. Like, it's just, it was so like, and the silhouette, you think it's some chick. And the light was on, it's Prince. And eyeliner, because it was the 80s, eyeliner and everything. And a lot of them, you know, Heavy Metal's no story too. That's a whole other genre also, that they were all in lipstick and stuff and they still got the chicks. I was there. Right. But with Prince, it was just like, he really challenged what Black men look like, what men look like, what musicians should look like. He really came out there. He took like the David Bowie, you know, the book out of there and said, I'm doing what the fuck I want and give you a good song at the same time.
Right. Prince was one of those people, again, maybe my age showing here, as a young whippersnapper, I didn't get it. I was like, what are you doing, dude? And then you hit a certain age and you're like, oh man, he is cool. He is smooth. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, there's that certain age where you're like, I don't know about all this, but then like you get older and you're like, he's actually really cool.
That was me with David Bowie. That was me at David Bowie in the 70s. My mother loved David Bowie, and I was like, Starman, Ziggy Star. I didn't get any of that until like a teenager. Like, So seriously, you're right. And then once you start DJing, you really get it all. You start going, but no, above all else, they had great songs.
Right. Yeah.
A lot of hits. You go, oh, okay.
Yeah. And the thing is, like with Prince, is it's just he was just so cool. Everything he did was so cool. And yeah, he's someone who, as a DJ, there's certain artists that you get, they're like freebies, where if you play a Prince song, like even if people aren't into it, they'll be like, I get it though. Like, that's fair. It's fair. like
what go-to Prince songs do you know normally go to? I mean, I'm sure Purple Rain.
Kiss is probably the first one that comes to mind.
Kiss, yes. Oh, yeah. Yes.
That was one of the first songs I'd play because you could just drop it in at the very beginning and it would be like,
yes.
Yeah, you didn't have to mix it. You could just kind of like slam into it and it'd be like, that sounds like it works.
Right. No, DJ. Sorry, we're going to just DJ talk for a second. Yeah, there's one of those songs you can really just drop in, or you start from the beginning, drop it in anywhere from another song, because you can change. Even though it's a different key and tempo, something else, it's fine. You totally go in there, people go, yes! They start screaming, and then it's like the next song.
Right. Yeah, in my mind, I always call them combo breakers, those songs that you can play at any moment, because, or get out of jail free cards. Because if you play a bad song and it's like people aren't feeling it and you're like, I got to get out of this song, you can kind of fade out that bad song anywhere and drop in Kiss, and people go, oh, yeah, because you have that strong, like, and it was
like Poison the same one.
Yeah, you can just, if you're playing like boop 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 boop, oh, this isn't working, cut it, that second of silence, dun 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 dun, dun, and it works. You can kind of get that get out of jail free card, like I said.
It totally works.
Usher is the same way, because he goes that peace up, A-Town down, bum 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 bum, and everyone's like, Yeah,
exactly. Oh yeah, I'm ready to get down already. Yeah, exactly.
Right. Yeah.
That's so true. I was very fortunate when I was a DJ, which was 10,000 years ago when dinosaurs roamed the earth. Um, there were a lot of booty-based songs that were big, and so they were between R&B, pop, and back then just rap. It's called it rap. I mean, hip hop was not really. It was becoming a word, but not yet. So it's like those three genres. Like for me, it was Daisy Dukes, Whoop, There It Is, Come On Ride the Train. There are all these songs that were kind of like they had rap in them, they had singing in them. Even early MC Hammer, they were all kind of mixing these elements together that were easy songs to throw on. I mean, I was very fortunate. I was like, I just throw this, I could throw an MC Hammer song on, that was everybody started dancing. So I liked that, but there were a lot, but they bridged the gap between certain genres, including R&B. They had this powerful black singer singing the songs, and I laughed about this. So I was talking about when I saw Donna Summer the musical before the pandemic. She talks about her role in. Of course, she was Queen of Disco, Queen of Disco.
Mm-hmm.
But each of her songs, she did rock songs, she did R&B songs, and she did. There's churchy side. It's like because her voice, she came from the church, which is a lot of R&B. That is about the people coming from the church and those powerful, I would say, black voices set to music. Aretha Franklin, we can't not mention Aretha Franklin, something like that also. I mentioned Whitney Houston earlier, but Aretha Franklin's another one considered the queen of R&B, right? The queen of R&B, make sure we say her, Gladys Knight, all those people, they all came from churches. They all came from Southern tradition where it was the powerful voice that was first.
Right.
And that's soulful.
Aretha Franklin, yeah, RESPCT. I mean, that's another one that just comes in strong. She's great as well. Yeah. Is there a king and a queen for every genre? I think that as we go through these, I keep hearing like king of pop, king of this, queen of that. Have we anointed royalty for all genres?
I wonder. That's a good question. I feel okay.
And who does who's the anointer?
The anointers?
Yeah.
I was just told who they are. I don't know. Oh, sorry. Before we do that for a second, make sure I read the comment. B2K. I forgot about them. They were big for a while too. B2K was big for a while. I know Omarion and all them. They all went solo and did other stuff. And Drew Hill. Drew Hill was big too. Cisco. You can't forget the thong song. Come on, Jack. The thong song. You can't forget that.
Dong, 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 dong.
that
song was so go. That song was so good.
Oh yeah, and I know exactly what I'm saying. The thong song. Okay, but that's why I had to mention that from the crowd.
What was B2K had? Were they a bump bump bump? Or no, that's 112. Yep. Or is that?
Oh, I know 112 was Peaches and Cream, and I loved 112 also. There were Peaches and Cream and that other song.
B2K was bump bump bump. Okay.
Only You. Yeah, and 112 was Only You and Peaches and Cream. Yes.
That's it. Okay. Yeah.
I guess they're boy bands, right? They're boy bands.
See, that's
I guess.
I don't know. I mean, I feel like I'm closer to calling B2K a boy band than I am to Boys to Men.
I don't know. Okay.
But yeah, those early 2000s, man, we were crazy. Times were good. That was a good time for music. Those early 2000s.
It was. No, it was. It's a great stuff because even like Christina Aguilera, she was considered pop, but she has the voice. Remember, of that generation, Whitney was the look. She had the voice. She was the heir apparent to Mariah, so to speak, or Celine Dion. She was the one with the voice. And even though she is half Latina, but she's very white and white looking. And admittedly so, she's no fight there. But she has a soulful voice, but she's not considered R&B. Pete came out. Remember, she came out at that same time too. Her first album was R&B. Then she switched to pop rock. But her first album, There You Go, and all those songs, that's from L.A. Reid and Babyface. I mean, she was totally doing R&B music.
It'd be interesting to find out why different artists change the music. If it's just a preference, if there's like I always envision some producer at the top of a large tower building going, this is what our analytics tell you to do. I always worry that it's always just like, for some artists I do that, but then for others, like with the Rolling Stones, I'm like, oh no, there's artists doing different things. But then others, I'm like, oh, it must be a producer up in the top of a building somewhere making decisions based on analytics.
Well, I'll go back to my buddies in Chicago, or even Earth, Wind and Fire. There were 70s bands who had lots of members, tons of members, or Kool and the Gang. They all these tons of members, and they did certain type of music. And then in the 80s, I know for a fact, they had producers tell them, you got to update your sound. So yeah, I remember Earth, Wind and Fire had this song called Magnetic. I mean, it's I used to play it when I was DJing. It was okay. It didn't count. It wasn't the same as Shining Star or After Love Was Gone. I mean, it didn't compare to any of their 70s music. It was a cheap imitation of 80s.
Isn't it such a bummer when a great group or artist or band comes out with a new song and it's not good, and you're just like, that's such a bummer.
Yeah, and I get you can't have hits every time, but I wonder who is pulling the strings.
Yeah,
to make them do that.
Like when certain artists come out, especially as a DJ, like whenever I hear Bruno Mars has a new song coming out, I'm like, man, it better be good, because you've got
so far so good. So far with him.
Yeah, so I hope he has some more music coming out, because music makes me feel old, because I always think about like certain songs, and I'm like, oh well, he needs, like, he came out with 24 Karat Magic, and you're like, wait, that was like 4 years ago. Like, yeah, he needs a new album out soon. Especially as things start to open up again. We start playing dance music again, and people there's been a lot of 70s sounding new music coming out, by the way, but that's neither here nor there.
No, yes, there has been. I think it's always cyclical, right? I remember a couple of years ago, I was doing my third album, Some Salty Clouds, Sunflower Dreams. I was listening to a lot of late 60s, early 70s music. And that was influencing what I was writing and what I was feeling. And I was listening to a lot of Carole King and James Taylor and Neil Young and Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young and Joni Mitchell. And I was listening to a lot of that, and it was like really affecting me and what I was writing. So I'm seeing that, like Miley Cyrus and Kesha came out with that album that was very 70s-esque, folky, and it was a big hit for her too. Actually, a big hit for her. I see that it's just kind of like, I guess it comes around. It must just come around. Nothing's really that new. I mean, I guess it's always some piece of the past, I guess.
Well, we've talked about two different genres and two different kind of groups recently, and one was Earth, Wind and Fire, which is a huge band, and the kind of hip hop stuff, like you were saying, Ride the Train, and that makes me think like Tag Team and all these other groups that were like, I hope we get back to where it sounds like there's 50 people in the recording booth all at once. I love those kind of songs. I said like Tag Team, like Tag Team back again. It sounds like there's 50 people in there with them all just partying and dancing, and it feels like it's just one take while they're all partying and dancing. Same thing with like Earth, Wind and Fire. It sounds like they're all in their booth at the same time, just jamming out and having a good time. I want to get back to that kind of music where even if you're just like sitting alone in your house and it's on, it sounds like they're at a party while you're listening to the music. That's what I want, James. I want more of that, where it feels like they're partying.
I don't mind that at all. I'm down for that. I don't mind that at all. But a lot of those groups, I watched a lot of those unsungs and behind the music things happen, obviously, with those big groups falling apart. I just watched a thing on Chicago the other day, and when Peter Cetera went solo, and they decided to keep on going, it was very contentious. They all those big groups after a while, I feel like, well, I want to say something. You're number 9 in the group. It's like, oh, I want to say something. Like, well, shut up. You're number 9 in the group. I'm sure it's a little tough.
And I imagine egos getting. I like to think that if I was in a group and Justin Timberlake was in the group, I'd be like, look, I'm just hanging on. As long as you keep me around, let's do whatever I need to do. I like to think I would know that. But of course, when you're the one there and you're the one on stage and everyone's cheering for you and your Twitter is getting blown up every day by people, it's probably easy to be like, I could do this on my own.
And Justin did.
And he went R&B.
He went R&B. He went R&B.
But all the other people in the group thought they were going to go off on their own too, probably. But
JC tried for a while. He did a couple of dance stuff. Didn't go nowhere.
Yes. One Direction had a couple of solid one-offs, but it seems like Harry Styles is going to be the one that really makes it.
Well, Well, yeah, he's the biggest, but I mean, Liam is not bad either. He's not far behind.
Yeah.
He has some hits.
Zayn had some
and
stuff
Zayn has
going on.
some good ones too. I mean, it's funny because they're R&B. Justin Bieber was R&B for a while there. He had some really good, you know. Of course, he was under the tutelage of Usher at one point.
Right.
He comes back every few years with some good songs. You're like, okay. I'm like, okay, I see you. And then you have folks like Gwen Stefani or Fergie who leave these popular groups and do a whole different type of music. I look at Gwen Stefani. I mean, she's ska and new wave and everything, but then she did this like R&B album, 2 of them. Like just like, where did that come from?
Right. Yeah, she's aging so well. That's crazy. To think that she was in a band in the mid 90s. Well, she's not aging as good as you are, James. You're the standard bearer.
but she doesn't. She looks good. Her, J-Lo, Jennifer Aniston were all the same age.
It's a golden age.
But no, she looks great. But she went the route of R&B. She didn't do. I mean, Hollaback Girl is completely. It's Pharrell. It's totally Pharrell. It's totally R&B. Even though he's also different too. So I look at people like him, Missy Elliott. They're kind of space agey, poppy, rocky. But then Pharrell will do a Drop Like It's Hot with Snoop Dogg. That's completely R&B.
Right.
And then it's really pop with somebody else. I'm like, they're so. Oh, Michael B. Oh, Michael B. You're in the room. I think rappers should start sampling. Oh, music got his rights back. Oh, okay. Who's which music? I'm just reading this now. Whose music? Tell me whose music. But yeah, I mean, rappers do sample a lot of R&B songs and their stuff. That's their bread and butter right there. "Fuck You Drummers" most sampled song of all time.
Yeah, and it's just like some guy, right? I think I saw a video on that. The guy who did it is just like he's not rich or famous or anything. Like he's got like nothing because he did it before like laws were made or something.
Exactly.
So it's basically just like free reign to take his drum, but he gets nothing for it.
That sucks. But then you got people like Lil Nas X who bought a beat on YouTube for like 10,000 some amount, and that song, of course, the rest is history, right? I mean, the rest is history of that song. Right. He got a beat from somebody, and I guess the guy got paid, but I heard the guy was like, I know it's gonna be that. You never know when a song's gonna be big. You don't know. I mean, you can hope a song will be big. And that literally is the longest running song of all time, I think, at this point or something. It's huge. I mean, it went huge. So, but he bought a beat from somebody, and it was like for like $2 or whatever.
Right. Which I mean, at this point, that guy, he's not gonna get rich off that, but he needs to be advertised. Hey, I'm the guy that made that beat. Hire me for big things now. That's how you make that work. But
that's how you do it, Jack. That's right, Jack. How you do? You know how to do this.
Yeah. You put that right on the front of that cover letter of your resume. But that's what. Yeah, there was I saw it was something like in the 90s. There was like legislation or something happened. Someone got sued, and then it became known that like you don't have to do much to get the legal rights to sample something. Like you just pay like some small fee and like note it in the CD or album somewhere, and then
you have to have you get credits. You get credit.
Right, but it's not like it's not as expensive or difficult as people thought, and that's why like in the late 90s there was a massive like everyone ridiculously sampling everything. Like Puff Daddy just like didn't even try to hide it. He was like, "Yeah, I'm taking this song."
Yes, yeah, he did. No shame. No shame at all. No shame. And people made fun of, there were huge hits, made fun of MC Hammer 20 years earlier, when he did it with When Doves Cry, when he did it with Super Freak. I mean, it's like, but they were genius. I mean, the songs are huge, but they made fun of him. But then years later, like you said, Puff Daddy comes out and he's sampling Diana Ross, he's sampling this one, he's just sampling anybody in the world.
Now it's basically just assumed you're sampling somebody.
Right.
Because Kanye does the same. Yeah.
I give points to Puff Daddy because I remember when Biggie died and he did that that song "Missing You" and he got Sting to sing with him on stage. And that was Sting's song. I thought that was very cool. They agreed to come on stage and sing that part live with them. So almost acknowledging.
I saw a cool thing with Led Zeppelin, how a lot of people would try to sue them over them copying things. And since then they've been copied a lot, but they've never once sued anybody for trying to copy their music. They've just said, yeah, good, go. Because their whole thing was like, look, it's music. You're trying to make something good. It's fun. It doesn't matter. And so they've never sued anyone for like copying their sound, or even if they could, they'd say, that's not what music is. You just.
I know Kashmir, I think, is copied a lot. Their song Kashmir, I think, is copied a lot.
Yeah, that's a good song.
That's a great song. The most famous one, which is the most ridiculous of all, is the John Fogerty story, where he came out with a song for his solo album, got sued by the former label because they owned the rights to a song he wrote for CCR. So he wasn't trying to sample it. He just wrote a song. It just sounded familiar to him, I guess. And they sued him. So he was sued by himself. He was sued for writing his own song, using it his own song. It's like, oh my God, it's about litigious, but it's just like, that is the most famous case of just like how ridiculous it can get.
It's such a shame, but that's, I mean, at the same time, I was thinking, we joke about selling out. When you sell out, that's part of it. When you get those millions of dollars, you're giving it away. That's the bad side of selling out, is you've given away all that stuff. They don't give you the money for nothing. They don't give it to you to just have a good time. They give it because they want everything. And that's the way it works.
That's true. And yes, Michael brings up George Clinton. Well, of course, famously for Parliament Funkadelic in the 70s, Atomic Dog, of course, that huge song in the 80s. Yeah, he's somebody who's, and so again, so you say R&B, there's also funk. So like Shaka Khan and Ruth Khan. She was known as the queen. I think she was known as the queen of funk, I think. Or who's queen of funk? I'm not saying, I think it was her. But like that funky down home, which again, there are also some other artists who aren't Black who do down home funk music too. But the most famous song, of course, is famously funky, funky music, White Boy by Cherry, which always gets folks to dance for.
If I play Jungle Boogie, or not Jungle Boogie, well, I guess Jungle Boogie, or I was gonna say Kung Fu Fighting, I feel obligated to play that funky music, White Boy, to offset the if I'm gonna play something that's blatantly making a lot of Asian stereotype comments, I'm gonna have to play that funky music, White Boy, to offset what I just played.
Even Funky Town, that song's not a big one too. It's another big. I mean, it has that heavy beat, and they say it's like, the name is Funky Town's in the song, but it is also funky. I mean, it does get down. I mean, it's so. I don't know. I mean, it's that bass. Bass makes things funky. I have friends who are bass players, and that makes things funky. I mean, it's just R&B is such an interesting. As we're talking about this, it is really a broad. It's a broad term. You can't just say it's Black people. And that's it. It's Black music. It came from Black people. We would never take that away from anyone. That's where it comes from. Like most music did. But it does. I think it does.
Except for those bagpipes. Respect the bagpipes. Respect the bagpipes.
Here's so funny. Madonna had bagpipes in her concert in 2001.
Really?
Yeah, she did. So she had an album. She did a tour called the Reinvention Tour, where she had no album out. She took all of her old hits and mixed them up and played them differently. And I want to say it was Vogue. It was either Vogue or Like a Virgin. She turned into a bagpipe song. So there's your bagpipes. But that was like 20 years ago. But there you go. So I've seen them since. There was some bagpipes on Will and Grace one episode, but that was like 10 years ago. But yeah, bagpipes are just not being played.
The only bagpipe song I think is relatively popular is that Dropkick Murphys "Shipping Out to Boston" song that gets played for like sporting events, and it was from that movie with The Departed, I believe, is where it got big. But that's the only one I think that's very popular, bagpipes. That's like obviously besides like any type of like old songs. I mean, like current new stuff. But
even though Lizzo brought back the flutes, maybe I could bring back the bagpipes. I mean, like when I started playing the flute, I was like, she plays the flute. She was classically trained and everything. I mean, she's 100% that bitch too, apparently, and plays the flute. She's that bitch, and she's a flautist. One of the two.
I like Lizzo. I hope she comes out with some more music. Her stuff's fun.
I'm telling you, folks. My friends know I was a fan of hers before she got popular. She had a song called "Phone" that was my ringtone on my phone for years. I kept saying, "This chick is good. This chick is good. You gotta look out for Lizzo." They're like, "Who's this Lizzo bitch?" I'm Like, no, she's good. And then when she got popular a couple years ago, I was so happy. Like, I knew she'd be popular because to me, she had it. To me, she just had it. But she plays the flute, folks. I mean, she plays the flute and she plays it in her songs. And like, okay, girl, like, so maybe the bagpipes will come. They will come.
Maybe I'm not holding my breath for the bagpipes.
Now you got me like, I'll do a bagpipe dance song. Yeah, do something like that.
River dancing doesn't count though. If you make a dance song where people river dance, that doesn't count. No, it's gotta be something you can play at the club. I want to hear something you can play at the club with bagpipes.
Well, I mean, I always think it's another tangent, but I would think of the song Cotton Eye Joe, which was big in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of the first techno country songs.
Right.
I could do a techno bagpipe song. Maybe. I don't know. I feel like a challenge now. I gotta find a bagpiper.
Good luck. Good luck.
What do you call them? Bagpipers, bagpipers?
A bagpiper sounds like a negative thing to be called.
I know. I don't know. I don't know what you call it. I'm sorry, folks. I'm sorry. Anybody out there who plays bagpipe, I'm sorry if you're watching this. You just have to run across my video. I don't mean to be I don't know what it's called. I really know what it's called. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna look it up, folks. I don't get in trouble. I'm gonna look it up right now because I don't want anybody yelling at me. Okay, what?
I mean, it's probably what it is, but it just, I don't know, the way it's said, it sounds like something you would say if you didn't like someone from Ireland or Scotland.
Right.
Get out of here, yeah.
I'm gonna look it up though. I won't get in trouble. I'm gonna get it right now. Okay, here we go. Let's see what it tells me. Oh, just called a piper.
Oh, a piper.
Okay.
That doesn't sound as bad. That doesn't sound bad.
No, not at all.
But when you say bag, when you put bag in front of it, it sounds not good.
Yes. And you can hire current average of hiring a bagpipe or hiring a piper is between $150 and $200 an hour.
Doesn't sound like a bad gig.
No. Now I'm gonna find one and say, play on my next song. Play some bagpipes. See if we can make it work. Like, oops, sorry, Siri. Don't talk to me. Right.
Well,
yes, I looked at that. So piper, that's what's called. So that's not bad. You know, it sounds like a plumber or something, but I don't know if that's.
Yeah. Huh.
You know. Well, folks, thank you for joining us. Thanks, Jack, for doing this. We're going to do this. But for the next 3 or 4 Mondays, we're doing this. We're talking different genres. Today was What is R&B? I think, I guess, Jack, what we realized, R&B is a broad term, just like all other genres of music, I think.
Yeah, this one, I think R&B more than most. I think R&B and pop are probably some of the most broad terms. Though, to your point, I think that what's great about having this conversation is a lot of people I think are like me going into something like R&B thinking it's just one type of person, whether it is just Usher or, like I said, for me, I always think of Boyz II Men. But there are so many others. I think that's what's kind of cool about these conversations is you bring up these other artists. And what I always like to do after these, I go listen to all these artists. I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. I haven't heard this. I haven't listened to Teddy Pendergrass in a long time. Get up, get down, get funky, get loose.
Get loose, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And turn off the lights and light a candle. Oh, exactly. Yeah. He had some songs out there. He was a big hit for a while.
Yeah.
I'm like, yes, listen to it. Well, I have my Rhythm and Blues Top R&B Albums book that I've had for years from Billboard magazine.
Oh.
It has all the R&B hits from a certain time. But I think it's from 1965 to 1998.
Interesting. That's got some fun ones in there.
Because they mentioned Isaac Hayes. I almost forgot about that. Jeff.
Oh yeah.
Isaac Hayes. They mentioned Quincy Jones. Join him a little bit. Stevie Wonder. Hello, Stevie Wonder.
Yeah, great.
Lou Rawls.
Isaac Hayes, it's funny that there's a generation of people that know him more as Chef from South Park than as a musician. It's such it's such a weird thing to think about that.
Well, as we know, this show business can be very interesting for people's careers. You never know where a second wind will come or a third wind will come and what that wind is.
Right.
His chocolate salty balls was a huge hit. I mean, like, it was like,
right.
This guy did Shaft. He has an Oscar. I mean, like, come on. I mean, it's just like
chocolate salty balls. He
came out with this big, like, furred vest and all blackness on the Oscars in 1971, and people were just like, what's that? With all these dancers, and he won an Oscar. But 30, 40 years later, he's chocolate salty balls or whatever. I mean, that's basically what he's doing. I mean, it's like,
I wonder if while he was doing that, he just would shake his head and be like, I'm an Oscar winner and I'm doing chocolate salty balls.
No, he's probably like you, Jack. I went, I'm going to make some money off of this. Thank you very much. What's the next line? Thank you. What's the next line? Okay, got it.
Next line. Okay.
Chocolate. Okay, got it. Okay, got it. I'm ready. Let's get the booth ready. That's what he was thinking.
Right. That's probably true.
He was thinking, I'm like, this is good retirement money. That's what he was thinking. This is some good money to, let me live for a while. Mm-hmm.
Right. That's true. That's true.
He laughed away to the bank, Jack. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about the late Isaac case. He's doing fine. He laughed away to the bank.
Oh, no. Sure. Yeah. He wasn't struggling.
Jack Farmer, tell me where they can find you on the social media platforms and on YouTube.
You can find me at Real Jack Farmer across all social media. You can also check me out on Claws. I'm going to be on an upcoming episode with James Lott Jr. So look out for that. I'm flexing the old voice acting muscles, seeing how that's going to go. I can't wait for it. You just had a new episode drop, by the way. Check that out.
Yes, today a new episode of Claws the series is out, and it features 3 of our actors who play Santa, Santa's wife, and the grandson. It's out now. It's called After Christmas, so it's a great episode. They're all short and fun, and soon we'll be back, us as the actors, soon to film the record the 5 main episodes. They're almost done, and I'm going to start scheduling those to be released in June. But this month, we have another episode coming out in a couple of weeks, and then every month, 2 episodes a month until June. So we're very excited. And we just started filming our Cupid Crossing series. We have another episode to do tonight, and that's about Valentine's Day. And it's a whole funny, crazy thing. So that cast is really nice too. So we're going to be doing that. But yeah, we got all kinds of stuff going on. JLJ Media, shows with Jack, shows with other people I know, shows by myself, the soaps. I do everything. I do it all. JLJ Media is the page. You're already on here now, so there's a subscribe button either there or there or there or something. It's some rectangle thing. Hit that, please. Also, tell us what you think. I mean, we love the engagement. Tell us what you think about this episode. Do you think we missed anybody? Do you think we're crazy? Whatever. Who is the king of everything, of all these things, queens of all these genres? Tell us. Whoever decided them, I don't remember. I remember hearing about them, why they were that. So tell us that. We'll take that. Thank you guys in the chat room. Thank you. Okay, this is today. Okay. They're talking to me in the chat room. Like, yeah, thank you very much. And there too. And everyone, please be safe. It's a strange week, kind of. So be a little careful, be a little safe, be aware of your surroundings, and go in compassion and listen to some music. That's what get us through this whole week. Listen to some good R&B music. That's what you should do. See you next time.